I still remember the message that started it all. We'd love to have you for a photo shoot this weekend. Paid project. You've got the right look. It was just a few lines, but my heart had nearly stopped when I read them. My first real photo shoot. My first chance to feel like all those girls I'd been scrolling past online, confident, glowing, untouchable. My boyfriend was the first person I told. He smiled, kissed my forehead, said he was proud of me. He even offered to drive me there, but I told him I'd be fine. I didn't want to look nervous, not in front of professionals. Saturday came faster than I expected. I stood in front of the mirror for almost an hour before I finally left, redoing my makeup twice, changing my top 3 times. My stomach twisted the entire drive there. The studio wasn't what I imagined. It was smaller, warmer, sunlight spilling through the high windows, catching on dust in the air. The walls were covered with portraits, faces frozen in perfect confidence. And then I saw him. Evan. The photographer. Tall, maybe mid-30s, sleeves rolled to his elbows, camera strap slung across his shoulder like it belonged there. He looked up from adjusting a light and smiled, not the polite, quick kind of smile you give to strangers, but slow, knowing. You must be Maya, he said, extending a hand. His voice was calm, steady, almost too gentle. Glad you made it. I shook his hand, trying to hide the fact that mine was trembling. Yeah, sorry, I was a little nervous. That's normal, he said, still holding my gaze. Everyone's nervous at their first real shoot. But that'll fade. I promise. Something in the way he said it made me believe him. He handed me a bottle of water, told me to relax while he adjusted the lights. I watched him move, deliberate, precise, like he'd done this 1,000 times. The camera wasn't just equipment in his hands, it was an extension of him. Okay, he said after a few minutes, smiling again. Let's start simple. Just breathe, look at me, and don't think too much. The first click of the shutter startled me. The second one didn't. By the fifth, I was already lost in it, the rhythm, the flashes, the sound of his calm voice guiding me. Beautiful. Perfect. Don't force it, just be. Each word felt heavier than it should. My heart pounded so loudly I wondered if the mic could pick it up. But when I looked at him behind the lens, I saw something different, not just focus, but attention. Intensity. And for the first time in a long time, someone was looking at me not as who I was, but as something more. When the session ended, I checked my phone, 3 missed messages from my boyfriend. How's it going? Still shooting? Call me when you're done, red heart. I smiled weakly, typing back. Just finished. It went great. I didn't tell him about the way Evan had looked at me through the lens. Or how, for a few fleeting moments, I'd forgotten about everything else. When Evan texted me 2 days later, I told myself it was just business. Would you be free for a few more shots? The light wasn't perfect last time, I want to redo a few frames. My heart raced anyway. I tried to sound casual when I replied, sure, I can come by tomorrow. He answered almost immediately, perfect. Afternoon works best. Bring the same outfit, and maybe something lighter, just in case. That just in case sat in my mind all night. When I arrived at the studio, the lights were already on. He was rearranging the backdrop, his sleeves rolled up again, the same calm confidence in every move. You came back, he said, smiling when he saw me. That's a good sign. I laughed softly, trying to hide how my stomach fluttered. You did ask me to. Yeah, he said, adjusting his camera, but you'd be surprised how many people don't. There was something in his voice that wasn't just about photography. We started shooting again, and I felt different this time, more comfortable, more aware of my body, of how his eyes followed me through the lens. Good, he murmured. Tilt your chin up a little. That's it. Beautiful. He moved closer to adjust the light stand, and when he reached across me to fix it, his arm brushed against my shoulder. The contact was brief but enough to send a spark through me. Sorry, he said, though his tone didn't sound sorry at all. It's okay, I murmured, forcing a smile. We kept going. Shot after shot, the silence between his voice and the camera's shutter grew heavier, thicker. Every time I exhaled, it felt like he was listening to it. At one point, he lowered the camera and looked at me, really looked. You're getting better at this, he said softly. You're not afraid of the lens anymore. I smiled. Maybe I'm just getting used to you. The words slipped out before I could stop them. For a second, his gaze deepened, and I felt something shift in the air. The sound of the camera returning to his hand broke the tension. Let's do one last set by the window, he said, his voice quieter now. The light from outside had softened to a golden haze. He stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his breath near my neck as he fixed a loose strand of hair. Don't move, he whispered, his voice low, deliberate. My body obeyed before my mind caught up. The shutter clicked, once, twice, and I realized I wasn't breathing. When we finished, he showed me the last photo on his camera. You see this? He said. That's not just a picture. That's emotion. I nodded, my voice caught somewhere between pride and guilt. I've never looked like that before, I whispered. He smiled faintly. Maybe you've never been seen properly before. I left the studio with that line echoing in my head, seen properly. When I got to my car, I checked my phone. A message from my boyfriend. How was today? Hope you're not too tired, red heart. I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing back. It was good. Just work. But I knew that wasn't true. That night, when I got home, everything felt too quiet. The hum of the fridge, the faint ticking of the clock, it all sounded louder than usual. My boyfriend was already asleep on the couch, the TV still playing something soft and familiar. I kissed his forehead, whispered goodnight, and slipped into the bedroom. My phone buzzed the second I closed the door. A message from Evan. Great work today. You were incredible. Sending a few previews, tell me what you think. There were 4 photos attached. I hesitated before opening them, but curiosity won. The screen lit up with my own face, except it didn't feel like mine. The girl in the photos looked different. Softer. Stronger. Seen. In one shot, the light hit just right across my shoulder, tracing my skin in gold. In another, my eyes looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. It wasn't about beauty, it was about something else. Vulnerability. Confidence. Desire. I stared at them for so long that my reflection dimmed from the screen, replaced by the faint outline of the woman I had become in front of his camera. My phone buzzed again. Another message. See what I meant? You have that thing, the moment between strength and surrender. Most people can't show that. My heart thudded. I typed, you make it easy, then erased it. I tried thank you. Erased that too. Finally, I sent nothing. But a minute later, another message came through. Can I send you one more? My favorite. Before I could reply, the image appeared. It was a close-up. My face, turned slightly toward the light, eyes half closed, lips parted. It looked intimate. Too intimate. My stomach twisted. It felt wrong to be looking at it. But I couldn't look away. I heard movement in the living room, my boyfriend shifting in his sleep, murmuring something under his breath. My chest ached, guilt pressing down on me. I locked the screen and slid the phone face down on the nightstand. But a few minutes later, I picked it up again. I zoomed in on the photo, my breath catching as I studied it, the light, the softness, the way he had seen me. That wasn't just a picture. It was a secret. And I wasn't sure I wanted to let it go. The next morning, I told myself it would just be another day. Another job. Another session. Nothing more. But when Evan texted me, can we shoot again today? I have a new concept. You'll love it. I didn't hesitate. I said yes before I even thought about it. When I arrived, the studio was different. The lights were dimmer this time, the curtains half drawn. There was no assistant, no noise, just him, setting up quietly, focused, the air around him calm but heavy. He looked up when I walked in. "You came earlier than I expected." I shrugged. I didn't want to get stuck in traffic. It was a lie. I just wanted to see him. He handed me a cup of coffee. "I was thinking we'd do something softer today. Natural light, less posing." I nodded, pretending to understand what that meant, but really, I just wanted to hear his voice again. He adjusted the light, stepped back, and said, "Let's start with you sitting by the window. Just breathe. Forget I'm even here." It sounded easy, but it wasn't. Every time I exhaled, I felt his presence, steady, patient, observing. He didn't rush. He didn't fill the silence. And somehow, that made everything louder, the click of the camera, the hum of the light, my own heartbeat. "Perfect," he said softly. "Don't look at the camera. Look outside." I turned my head toward the light, and the warmth hit my face just right. I could feel him watching, but not like before. It wasn't the look of a man behind a lens, it was something else. Something that made my chest tighten. He lowered the camera for a moment, walked over, and fixed a loose strand of hair that had fallen across my cheek. His fingers were cold. The touch lasted barely a second, but it stayed long after he pulled away. "Better," he said quietly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The shoot went on like that, small movements, quiet directions, nothing dramatic. But each pause, each glance, carried something unspoken. By the time we finished, the sunlight had already faded from the room. I stood up, brushing invisible dust from my jeans, and he smiled. "You did great," he said. "You're starting to let go." Let go. The word stayed with me the entire drive home. I didn't answer my boyfriend's call that night. I just lay there in bed, eyes open, replaying the way Evan had looked at me, and wondering when just work had started to feel like something else. ChatGPT. Grinning face with sweat. Part 5. Part 5, the photos he chose. It was 2 days before I heard from him again. I tried not to think about it, about the way the light had caught my face that afternoon, or the sound of his voice telling me to breathe. But every quiet moment pulled me back to that studio. Then, late at night, my phone buzzed. "I finished editing some of your photos," the message said. "Want to see them?" I hesitated only a second before typing back, "Yes." A few minutes later, the pictures arrived. Dozens of them. I opened the first one, and forgot how to breathe. It wasn't just me in those photos. It was something else. The way he'd framed the light, the expression I didn't remember giving, the softness in my eyes, it didn't look like posing anymore. It looked like honesty. I scrolled through them slowly, one by one. Each image felt like a secret version of me, someone I'd never met but somehow recognized. And between every shot, I could hear his voice again. "Don't pretend. That's the real you." My heart was beating too fast. Then his next message came in. "Do you see it now?" "See what?" I wrote back. "What I see in you." I didn't answer. Instead, I kept staring at one photo, the one where I was sitting by the window, looking away from the camera. The sunlight traced a thin line across my shoulder, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was looking at art or something I shouldn't have. My boyfriend walked into the room then, sleepy, smiling. "You're still awake?" I closed the screen too quickly. "Yeah, just work stuff." He leaned down and kissed the top of my head. "Don't stay up too late." When he left, I opened the photo again. Zoomed in. The light on my skin, the look in my eyes, it felt too raw, too exposed. Like Evan had managed to capture something I hadn't meant to show. And I realized, with a strange mix of fear and fascination, that maybe I didn't want to hide it anymore. By the third day, I couldn't tell if I was excited to work or to see him. That thought alone terrified me. Every time Evan texted, my pulse jumped. Every time he said, "You were amazing in that last frame," I read it again and again, searching for something between the words that probably wasn't there, or maybe was. The next shoot wasn't in the studio this time. He said he wanted to capture something real. We met near the old train yard on the edge of town, where rusted tracks vanished into wild grass. The place was quiet, forgotten, like it belonged to another world. He was already there when I arrived, setting up the tripod. He looked up and smiled, that same calm, knowing smile that always made me feel like he saw right through me. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded, even though I wasn't. The camera clicked, and the rhythm began again, his quiet instructions, the soft hum of wind, the sound of my own heartbeat. But something was different this time. He didn't say as much. He didn't need to. The way he looked through the lens was enough. "Don't pose," he said quietly. "Just be. Forget I'm here." But that was impossible. I could feel him even when I wasn't looking. His presence filled the air, calm, certain, unshakable, while I felt myself coming undone inside. After a few minutes, he lowered the camera and just looked at me. "You're different when you're in front of the lens," he said. "It's like you stop pretending." I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. "Maybe that's your fault." He smiled slightly, but his eyes didn't soften. "Maybe it is." The silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, but charged. I looked away first, pretending to check my phone. A message from my boyfriend. "How's it going? Want me to pick you up?" For a moment, guilt surged, raw and heavy. I typed "I'm fine, just finishing soon," then put the phone face down. When I looked back, Evan had already raised the camera again. "Good," he said softly. "Whatever you're feeling right now, keep it. Don't hide it." And as the shutter clicked again and again, I realized he wasn't just taking pictures anymore. He was taking something from me, piece by piece, and I was letting him. I started waking up thinking about the next shoot before it was even scheduled. The idea of standing in front of his camera again made my stomach twist, a mix of excitement and shame that I couldn't untangle anymore. My boyfriend noticed. "You've been distracted lately," he said one morning, handing me coffee. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I lied, smiling too quickly. "Just tired. Deadlines." But it wasn't work that kept me up at night. It was the memory of the way Evan looked at me through that lens, steady, focused, like he could see things no one else could. When I arrived at the studio again, he was already waiting. No assistants this time. No one else. Just him, the camera, and that faint hum of soft lights overhead. "You came," he said, like he'd been expecting me to hesitate. "You did ask me to," I replied, setting my bag down, though my voice sounded weaker than I meant it to. He smiled faintly. "You didn't have to say yes." The shoot started quietly. He barely spoke, only short, calm directions. "Turn your head. Look up. Stay there." Each word landed heavier than it should. But then he stopped shooting altogether. Lowered the camera. Just stared. "You trust me, don't you?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. "I think so." He nodded once. "Good. Then stop doubting what I see in you." I didn't understand what he meant, or maybe I did, and that's what scared me. The rest of the session blurred. It wasn't about the poses anymore. It was about how he made me feel, raw, exposed, understood. Every click of the shutter felt personal, like a conversation I couldn't control. When it was over, he showed me one photo on his screen. Just one. My face. Eyes open, but different, unguarded, almost broken. "This is the real you," he said quietly. "Don't lose her." The words lingered long after I left. That night, my boyfriend texted again. "Miss you tonight." You've been working so hard. Maybe take a break tomorrow? I typed back maybe. Then deleted it. Because even if I stopped showing up to the shoots, I knew the truth. I was already caught in his frame. By the next week, I had promised myself it would be the last shoot. Just one more, to wrap it up, to close whatever this was. When I told my boyfriend, he smiled, relieved. Good, he said softly. You've been so busy lately, I miss you. The guilt stung more than I expected. I kissed him, promised I'd be home early. And I meant it. I really did. The studio looked different that day, quieter, dimmer. Evan had drawn the curtains, leaving only a thin line of sunlight cutting across the floor. The air smelled faintly of coffee and dust, the kind of stillness that felt like it was waiting for something. Glad you came, he said, voice low, almost unreadable. I wasn't sure if you would. I wanted to say something witty, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I smiled weakly. Just one more session, right? He studied me for a moment. If that's what you want it to be. He picked up the camera but didn't start shooting. He just looked at me, long enough for me to feel exposed before anything even began. Relax, he said finally. Forget everything outside this room. There's only the light, and what it finds. It sounded poetic. It also sounded dangerous. I took a deep breath and tried to focus, but my thoughts wouldn't stay still. Every time the camera clicked, it felt like he was capturing something I didn't mean to show, every hesitation, every heartbeat, every unspoken question. At one point, he set the camera down and stepped closer. You're thinking too much again, he said quietly. That's not who you are in these photos. Then who am I? I asked. His eyes softened, but not kindly. Someone who finally stopped pretending. The air between us changed again, heavier, slower. I took a step back, forcing a laugh that didn't sound real. You make it sound like I'm a character you created. He tilted his head slightly. Maybe you are. My phone buzzed on the table, the sound sliced through the moment. A message from my boyfriend lit up the screen. Done soon? Can't wait to see you, red heart. Evan's gaze flicked to it for half a second, then back to me. You should answer, he said, voice unreadable. I will, I lied, even though I didn't move. He didn't press. He just lifted the camera again. Okay, he whispered. Let's finish this. But somewhere deep down, I already knew. This wasn't the end. A week passed. For the first time in months, my phone stayed silent. No new messages. No calls. No invitations to one last shoot. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe I could finally breathe again. Then, one evening, just as I was starting to believe it, his name appeared on the screen. Evan. Found something you'd want to see, the message said. Not work-related. Just, you. I stared at it for a long time. I should have deleted it, blocked him, done something. But curiosity, or maybe weakness, made me open it. It was a photo. Not from our sessions. Not from anything I remembered. I was walking away from the studio, looking over my shoulder. He must have taken it without me knowing. The frame was tilted, imperfect, but the focus, on my face, was sharp. There was something in my eyes I didn't recognize, exhaustion, maybe, or longing. My chest tightened. Then another message came through. It wasn't just the camera. I meant every word I said about you. I locked the phone and tossed it onto the table, but it didn't stop the pulse racing through me. It wasn't attraction anymore. It was something darker, the realization that I'd let someone see too much of me, and now I didn't know how to take it back. My boyfriend walked in while I was still staring at the blank wall. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said automatically, forcing a smile. Just tired. He nodded, kissed my forehead, and left the room. The second the door closed, I picked up my phone again, and deleted every message, every photo, every trace of him. But I couldn't delete the feeling that maybe he still had more photos, words, moments, things that didn't belong to him, but weren't mine anymore either. And that was the scariest part. I didn't go to the studio the next day. For the first time in weeks, I ignored his messages. At first, there were only a few. Everything okay? Then, you don't have to disappear. And finally, you'll regret walking away. That one stopped me cold. I sat there staring at my screen, the words echoing louder than they should have. Regret? For what, wanting to breathe again? My boyfriend noticed the change almost instantly. You're quieter, he said, his voice careful, like he was afraid of the answer. I opened my mouth to tell him everything, the photos, the sessions, the way Evan had gotten inside my head, but the words stuck. Instead, I just said, I think I need to stop doing shoots for a while. He smiled, the kind of small, honest smile I hadn't seen in too long. Good. You've been somewhere else lately. I just want you back. That night, I went through my phone and opened the folder with all of Evan's photos. Hundreds of them. For a moment, I almost deleted them all. But I didn't. I just stared at one, the one he'd called the real you. Except now, it looked different. Not confident. Not free. Just lost. I realized then that what I'd mistaken for being seen was actually being owned. The next morning, I sent him one message. Don't contact me again. He never replied. And somehow, that silence was louder than all the shutter clicks combined. It's strange how quiet life feels once the noise inside you fades. Months had passed since I'd last seen Evan. Since that final message, the one he never replied to. For a while, I kept waiting. Not for him, but for the weight in my chest to lift. For the guilt to shrink. For the memories to stop flashing like camera shutters behind my eyes. But healing doesn't happen all at once. It's not a door that closes, it's a slow dimming of light, a sound that fades until one day you notice it's gone. Work got busy again. I started running in the mornings, meeting friends, living the kind of life that didn't revolve around unread messages and perfectly staged moments. My boyfriend, patient as always, never asked for explanations. He just stayed, quiet and steady, until one day I realized I'd stopped feeling the need to apologize. Then one evening, while clearing my laptop, I found it. A folder buried deep under old projects, labeled Evan, Final Edits. For a long time, I just stared at it. The name felt heavier than it should. Like a door I'd already locked but never quite walked away from. I clicked it open. There they were, the photos. Hundreds of them. My face caught in stillness, my eyes half lit, half lost. Once, I'd thought they made me look powerful. Now all I saw was someone trying too hard to be what someone else wanted. Every picture looked staged, even the ones that weren't. Every smile looked practiced. Every glance rehearsed. And behind every image, I could still feel the echo of his voice, soft but sharp, don't pretend. For a second, I almost pitied that girl, the one who mistook being noticed for being known. I hovered over the folder, hesitated, then pressed delete. The screen blinked. Gone. No dramatic music. No rush of relief. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels real. When my boyfriend came home that night, I was sitting by the window with the lights off, watching the last traces of sunset fade behind the buildings. He put a hand on my shoulder and asked, "You okay?" I smiled. "Yeah. I think I am." He leaned down, kissed the top of my head, and went to make tea, like he always did. The sound of cups, water boiling, the radio humming faintly in the kitchen, it all felt beautifully ordinary. And as I sat there, I realized something simple but true. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a picture someone else had taken. I felt like myself again, blurred edges, uneven lighting, flaws and all. Real. Unposed. Mine. I wasn't in anyone's frame anymore.